National Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Good morning and welcome to Make It Grow, a joint project of WOOF FM and the Bradley County Master Gardeners Program of Cleveland. And today we're going to be talking about perennials. And Deb, introduce our guests.
Good morning. I always feel like I need to remind folks that show that precedes us is a recorded show. And if you want to call in live and talk to them, feel free to call them on Wednesday morning.
It's not Ruth and Johnny was doing the yelling.
It is
here.
not us doing that show. Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone. We're here to do another episode of Make It Grow, and this is Debbie Moore, and we have Johnny Arnett and Ruth Baumgardner in. I just want to make sure I get all those syllables in there. Beautiful name. And we're really excited to have these ladies in here today, and we're going to talk about perennials, those plants that you plant, and they just keep coming back year after year. And Ron says the difference between a perennial and a weed is?
It's where you planted.
Yeah.
If you planted it there, it's a perennial. If you didn't plant it, it's weed. Is that right, Ruth?
Yes, that would be acceptable. One of the things I used to tell people is some of my crowd knows that I'm a former first grade teacher, and I say we need to go back to the basics. Like, do you know the difference between an annual and a perennial? An annual has to be planted every year. A perennial, hopefully, in my definition, comes back 3 or more years. If it doesn't come back in 3 or more years, then you have a biennial or an annual, or a plant not hardy in our area.
Yes, that's right.
So all perennials are not there forever, though? Or
no.
Some are and some are not? Or
Some just don't survive very long. Some of them need divided very frequently to keep them going.
Stellas.
I think that's what happens to ours, is that we plant them and go, oh, yay, it's a perennial, and then we think that we have to do nothing but enjoy them.
Don't you just supposed to plant once and then look at it? It's really pretty and never have to touch it again, right?
Well, let me say something. If you have poor soil with very little organic or nutrition in it, you're going to lose a lot of perennials over the years. They'll they have to have food to survive. So that's where mulching and maybe some fertilizing comes in handy.
And the soil in this area is only so deep, and it's not very good below that, and not very good on top of it either. And if you build a house and the grader came through, you probably don't have a lot of topsoil. And at my house, where our flowers are, exactly is that the only thing that's getting organic back in there is the dead flowers that I planted, and they're falling down in there and fertilizing.
Well, I think it's important in our area because most of us do have what we call that clay or chert even, and it's important that we not throw that out though, because that also gives you structure for roots and for stems. And so you need some of that in the soil, but you need that organic matter. And if it's really, if you're planting things that like excellent drainage, then I'd also add some sort of material for drainage, and it could be mason sand or chicken grit. And then organic matter is like peat moss, your own compost or walk compost, well-rotted manures. If you can add all that, you'll have, when the tag says it'll get 2 feet, it'll probably get 3 or 4 feet if you do all that.
Ruth owned and operated with her husband a Mouse Creek Nursery in Riceville for a number of years, and after 31 years, they retired last year. She's been the president of the Perennial Plant Association. She's an honorary Master Gardener, which is the class Ron's taken now. And she's a featured speaker at a number of organizations. And this spring, she was inducted into the Tennessee Nursery and Landscaping Association Hall of Fame. So she really knows what she's talking about, folks. If you have questions about any kind of plants this morning, she and Johnny would be glad to help us try to answer those. If someone's starting out, Ruth, and they've just bought a house and they've got a barren, small section of ground in front of their house, what would you suggest that they plant in this?
Sun or shade? Sun
or shade? Yeah, I think let's go with sun.
Okay, now if it's the front of their house, it depends on what their vision is. I mean, are they wanting a flower garden, or they want
Let's
something?
do a small flower garden.
Okay, small flower garden. Of course, first thing you want to do is get rid of the weeds and the grass, and there's several ways it can be done. You could do it with Roundup or something like that, or you could even, if you were patient, that's the problem, most of us aren't patient.
We're not patient.
If you're patient, you could put black plastic down and put something on keep from the wind from blowing it off, or you can even use newspaper. I like to use newspaper if I'm going to take some time doing it. But if you're impatient, then you've got to scoop all those weeds and grass off of there, and then dig down as deep as you can. Now, you said a small patch, so there may not be room for a tractor or even rototiller to get in there. It just depends. But the deeper you can dig down and loosen that soil and get some air into the soil, and then you need to add that organic matter that I was talking about. And if it's going to be a full sun garden, I'd go ahead and add something for drainage. And the reason I say that is because in 3 years, all your organic matter is going to be dissolved and deteriorated, and it's going to be gone. That's why it's so important to continually mulch your beds with something that will break down, like pine bark or...
And you got to remember also, when you put that dirt back around your house, make sure that it's not sloped toward your house.
Yes.
You're going to have to build that and slope it away from your house.
See, our house has been there for quite a while now, and we probably need to do some of that kind of
Move. Probably what we need to do.
We just move off and leave all the stuff in our garage.
It's paid for is the best thing about it. So, but you can go to garden centers and buy soil mixes to get started too, can't you?
You can, but a lot of times you're paying for a lot of ingredients that aren't necessary for in the ground. Now, for containers, you want that perlite and that kind of stuff for drainage, and you want it to be light. That's why they use perlite instead of sand or something like that. But you're spending a lot of money for potting soil if that's what you put in your beds.
What mixture do you like? Like how much peat moss?
To make it simple, I usually think in terms of third of what you've got, a third organic and third of grit or sand. But you could reduce the grit or sand down to 2 or 3 inches, but the organic matter needs to be, quite a bit, maybe 4 or 5 inches if you can.
I have 3 ongoing compost piles. And this last winter, we went to a school in Murfreesboro, and they always have a sale. And I bought a compost sifter, which is the coolest thing because now I can put it over my wheelbarrow and put it on, and I get the nice, it almost looks like really fine. I mean, it's just like black gold, and I'm so excited because it's so much better. My husband gets really tractor happy sometimes when he's grading, and I have a lot of rocks in my compost. So this way I can sift all this, and it works. It's a great.
We got a call here. Let's see if we can. Good morning. You're on Make It Grow.
Ron, is this you?
It is me.
Hey, Ron, it's Sid. I'm a big gardener.
Oh, you are?
Yes, I am.
So what do you grow?
I don't know what I'd like to grow.
No, you can't grow that kind of stuff now.
No, not yet. But listen, I used to run, I don't know, did you know the 14 of Georgia's at? Did you know the Wilson's greenhouses, Gordon Wilson's?
Yeah, I know Tinga, Georgia very well. That's where my mom's from.
Okay, remember Gordon Wilson?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I helped him run those commercial greenhouses. Okay, we're talking about the soil mixture that you buy in the bag. The perlite is for aeration and believe it or not, in my cactus media, and I used to propagate cactus, my own cactus. These ladies probably already know that. You cut the top like a golden barrel. You can cut the top out of it and let it heal over. In the sun, it'll start putting on little bitty golden barrel cactuses around the edge. Okay, you let them get so big, maybe like a nickel, maybe a little bigger, and let them heal over. Put them on a propagation bench in the right media, and I never used a drop of sand. I just use a little more perlite when I would mix it, because the perlite will actually help hold nutrients too. And because if you notice, if you use a dye-colored, we're talking about chemical fertilizer, you'll notice the perlite will get a little blue on it, and it'll hold that. And it's just basically volcanic ash heated. I mean, not volcanic ash, but the lava heated to a high temperature. Now, that's how they make perlite. Okay, the vermiculite will absorb. The vermiculite is for more moisture, If you'll notice, you'll get a little piece of that vermiculite out of your growing media and drop a drop of water on it. You'll notice it will expand. And it'll hold water. It'll hold moisture. Okay, the peat moss, of course, is like, okay, some we got, they've got acid. There's acid-loving plants, and then there's plants that don't like so much acid. I've got a soil meter. It's got 2 prongs on it. It tells you whether it tells what's all in it, what the temperature of the ground. It tells.
Hey, so we got to get moving on here, okay?
Oh, okay.
But thank you so much.
Thanks. I didn't know you was a gardener.
Oh man, I got to call you back. And there's a friend of mine that's the art. It's a Crazy Arts Landscape, and he's gonna call you. And he has got some so beautiful plants. I've got to get this in for him. And he has got some of the best tried and some of the most beautiful plants.
Well, just have him call us then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sid.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, no Sid could say 4-syllable words. Sid's a faithful listener.
I'm impressed with Sid there. I didn't know
You
he
played the banjo. But
He played the banjo, but I didn't know he did that. Where were we at? I don't even know now.
Ruth was telling us about how to start a garden.
Yeah.
Right, and I was just trying to hold the cost down because perlite and vermiculite are excellent for use. I use it when we were propagating plants. And when you're talking about containerized plants, or he's talking about cactus, but I was talking about when you're talking about a 9 by 12 garden area, that's an expensive way to go. But sometimes people, that's all they can get a hold of, and so it's fine to add things that have perlite and maybe some vermiculite in it. But the next step would then be to kind of what I like to do is I'm a colorist, I guess you might call me. I'm very like to put colors together or make a garden that's pleasing to the eye in my mind.
I know what you said about men and what colors we like.
Oh, did I?
Yes,
well,
I've heard that.
I think new gardeners and men usually like bold colors, reds and yellows. And as you garden a while, you realize, I'd like to tone that down a little bit and add a punch of yellow, add a punch of red, but not all red and yellow.
Red, yellow, and white. What else do you need?
I know.
I'm guilty. I'm sitting there going, I sort of keep quiet because I was guilty. Go ahead.
But then kind of you need to research a little bit. This is where it gets into difficulties because so much of perennials, about 80%, have small leaves, and you end up not having texture contrast. So you need to be watching that besides the height of the plant, the width of the plant, but those are important. Or also, of course, doing a perennial garden, I like to plant it so you have something blooming in the spring, something blooming in the summer, and something blooming in the fall. So, we go to the nurseries in the spring because we're so starved for color. We buy everything blooming, and then come late summer, fall, we don't have anything blooming because everything's quit. Most perennials bloom somewhere from 4 to, well, wait a minute, peonies are about, depends on how you want to pronounce that, from 2 weeks to, for them, to some plants will bloom around 6 to 8 weeks, but somewhere in that 4-week category.
Give us an example of a spring perennial, early spring, something so we can have color.
Well, if we're talking about full sun, one of the first things that starts blooming, you may not want to put in the bed, is your creeping phlox. It blooms usually late March. And then get into, say, like April, talking about some of my favorites, some of the irises, especially Siberian iris, because the foliage looks great during the summer, whereas German beards are beautiful, but they do tend to look ugly in July. Then the other thing is peonies. I like to put peonies and Siberian iris together. Then come into early summer, your tall garden phlox, especially the mildew-resistant varieties. Daylilies start coming in there, and like in June, and daylilies are hard to beat. They're hard to kill, and so they're probably one of the best plants for beginning gardeners and for us old gardeners too. Then as you get into August, think of black-eyed Susans. I think that comes into play. Your tall, hardy sedums are wonderful for late summer, getting into fall. And then when you get into like late September, October, there's some wonderful asters. There's one called October Skies that just is almost blue with a black center. And, of course, ornamental grasses are coming in at that time, and they also offer great texture contrast.
What are bachelor buttons? Are those
Well,
asters?
it depends on where you're from. Bachelor buttons could be belongs to a group of plants that I usually consider them annuals and not truly perennials. They're reseeding. They reseed themselves. So a lot of times we think, people come in and say, my grandmother had hollyhocks and they were always there, so they have to be perennials. But hollyhocks are really a biennial. You start them one summer and then they bloom the next. Drop seed and start new little plants the same summer.
Okay, we've done the sun. How about a shade garden?
Okay, now in the shade garden, most of the color is going to be in the spring. And so you're going to have to use foliage colors from things like hosta and all to bring it through. But I always recommend to people doing a shade garden wanting to get some color in the summertime is to add some spiderworts or Tradescanthia, because especially some of the newer varieties that don't flop, but you still, after they bloom, cut them back and they'll bloom again.
Well, now, this is my area that if I have a shade garden, we've got to put some natives in there.
Right. Well, in the spring, you can have all those natives.
The spring ephemerals.
I would start off with Helleborus, which may not be a native, but it's
It's
excellent, and the foliage looks great all through the summer. But the bloom starts coming up, and we're just so starved for color. There's just a little color there.
February, yeah,
Usually February. Sometimes we have a milder winter. It'll be end of January. But Helleborus, and then all those spring wonderful things you just mentioned to me.
My blue-eye grass is coming up now. It's blooming now, and it's just so delicate. And to me, I love going out early in the morning and like my Indian pink and my fire pink. What's so neat about my fire pink? We've got a gravel area in the back, and that stuff will just grow anywhere, and it's such a vibrant red.
One time when I first started out, planted lamb's ear. Of course, we're back into sun plants, but I had it enrolled. The soil had been amended, and it was looking great. And then it started rotting out because it was staying too wet in that bed that we had added so much humus to. But there was a gravel driveway right next to that bed, and that's where the lamb's ear ended up reseeding and did beautifully. So I learned a lesson about good drainage, especially around the crown of plants like that.
Even the little crested dwarf iris, they will grow in rocky. They do not need. In fact, they won't grow as good, just like the lamb's ear.
Well, one of the things I learned about crested iris, because I did so much of all of my plants in the nursery were grown in containers, and we changed the blend a little bit of the mixture. But I found out that crested iris in the woods grow next to limestone rock.
Oh.
And because of that, I've learned always to add lime to around where my crested iris is, whereas most of your native spring blooming perennials like acidic soil, but there's the exception to the case.
That's interesting, because I have my white irises around a rock wall, and they're just multiplying like crazy.
What irises bloom, and then when do you dig those up, separate them, and cut them? I mean, do I have to wait till the fall, or are they going to end blooming here soon, right?
Right. German bearded, really the best time to divide them is in July when they're starting to look ugly. Cut those fans back. I used to, because my husband moved me around every 3 or 4 years, I'd take my iris collection with me and I would write on the leaf blade what it is, put it in a brown paper sack. Sometimes got them planted that same summer, but most of them would survive to the following year. Of course, I wouldn't get bloom that quickly.
What about the Siberian? When should you do
Siberian, that? I can get by with 8-10 years. Sometimes what happens is the center dies out, and you'll want to kind of chop it up and get rid of that center that has died out. But I can get long time before.
What about the copper irises? I have some of those. They're the native.
I can get by on those probably 3 or 4 years before I even have to think about dividing them. That kind of lets you know.
Yeah, the natives don't bloom as long, but it's just a neat little, this is what I love, March and April for the natives.
So you just break the bulbs apart, and now do you cut the foliage off? Or?
Well, I do, because it's starting to brown. I just cut it off to make it look nicer.
Just down.
Yeah.
But the key with the German bearded is, the rhizome that has bloomed will not bloom again, but it's putting off rhizomes on each side, and those side rhizomes is what you replant, and you throw away the rhizome that was in the middle.
It's like the daddy rhizome. It's,
Yeah.
It's
Or the
old.
mama. We
Yeah,
call
the
mama
mama.
rhizome. Or the
What about hostas?
Well, if you want to get the most divisions from a hosta, the best time is to do it in the fall. But you can divide hosta. I've divided hosta any time of the year. The main thing is that when you divide it in the hot summer, you're going to have to watch over it and give it some extra attention with watering and everything.
Mm-hmm. And you just basically have to divide the hosta. Tell me how.
Well, I dig the whole clump up, and then I take a sharp, clean knife, and I just start slicing through, keeping a, they call them pips. If you divide them early in the spring, if you can divide them when they first come up, you can get a lot of better growth, and it gets them established quicker.
We planted one several years ago, and it's massive now, and it needs to be divided.
When you want to divide it, I'll come help you.
Okay.
and we got lilies that we've got to, we had some in some planters.
Irises
our pool that is now, they've stopped blooming. So probably.
They've been in there.
Well, they probably
12
need
years.
something. Probably haven't got anything for it to eat in there either.
Right.
We haven't
We have abused those.
Yeah, we have abused. They still
They're
come,
the little
the
short
foliage still
yellows.
comes up, but there's no flowers.
Right. They're not blooming as heavy because they're so thick. They're not.
They are.
Yeah.
They've
Mhm.
and
So you just cut same thing, just divide them up.
Pretty much with daylilies, I dig up the whole clump. You don't have to. You could take a pickaxe and get a side shoot out. But probably what needs to be done now is divide the clump.
We're talking about clumps this big around.
Divide it up,
Yeah,
replant
it-
it.
it's the size
Divide
of,
it up, bring them
size
to
of the planter.
Divide it up, bring them to master gardeners, give them to everybody, and then replant half of them.
Yeah, well,
Of course, the roadside daylily, the ditch lily, the orange one,
Love
it
those.
just travels. So it kind of divides itself. It just keeps
why
moving
doesn't it
out.
travel to my house and to my flower bed? Is what I keep wondering. Yeah. So that we got a caller here. Good morning. You're on Make It Grow.
Hello, Ron and Debbie.
Hello, Miss Ella. How you doing this morning?
I'm tired.
Tired? Why?
I went to the senior prom last night.
Oh, did you win?
No, and I don't think I'll ever go again.
Oh no.
I had a guy picked out, but because he worked for the senior center, they wouldn't let him be my king.
Oh, I hate when that happens. I really do.
I know. I keep standing that center out there. They treated me bad ever since the prom that I was in.
Well, they're just jealous. That's all it is. They're just jealous.
Well, anyway, I had a good time. There was a one-man band. I don't know who he was, but I don't remember who he was. But he played some good music anyway, and we had a good time.
Well,
that's all that matters, Miss Ella.
I
all
know.
right. Well, you have a good day, okay?
Yeah.
It's supposed to get hot, so don't get out in the sun.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Today, by the way, Ron, is the car show downtown.
Oh, yes, and also, if we have a chance, salute to all our veterans. Memorial Day's Monday, and there's a program downtown in Cleveland. I think it starts at 11 o'clock. So
10:30 or 11.
Yeah, so if you get there at 10, to be fine, in the courthouse square. So I can't remember who the speaker was, but
We're just full of information
well,
this
yes,
morning, aren't we?
sort of information. Good morning, live on the Old Town. No, we're on Make It Grow. I get that confused every week. Don't go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
Hey, this is Crazy Art calling.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm listening to your garden show there, and I'm a grower of perennials.
Oh, good. What do you grow?
Oh, we've got a pink coneflower. We're talking about shade perennials, and I've got one that's real pretty. I've got two varieties of coral bells that are awful pretty. And also we grow autumn joy sedum, which they flower pink in the fall. They're really, really pretty. Also, we have got a beautiful selection of hostas, some old-fashioned Sweet Williams, Shasta daisies. I'm actually walking around the nursery looking at, because I've got so many perennials that we grow here. We've got some gorgeous foxglove.
I got in trouble with the foxgloves one time. I thought it was a weed growing in our flower bed, and I jerked it out and threw it out in the middle of the yard. And my wife come home and was a little mad at me.
Oh Lord, yeah, they're gorgeous when they bloom. We also have some beautiful columbine. Have you ever seen a flower on those columbines?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're gorgeous.
And they're growing everywhere in my yard. they reseed themselves.
Now tell us where your greenhouse is.
We're at 3250 Spring Place Road, right here in Cleveland.
3250 Spring Place. Tell me where that is on Spring Place.
You come down past Turkey Road, and when you see the Macedonia Church on your left-hand side, you put your blinker on.
Okay.
Go right into my place.
Yes.
What's the name
okay.
of the name of the greenhouse?
It's Crazy Arts Landscape Company.
Crazy Arts.
Easy to remember.
I know exactly where you're at. Yeah, okay.
Well, you're right across the street from Deb's mom down there.
She lives behind Macedonia.
And also, every kid that comes in here, we give them free plants.
There you go. Get them started young. Well, thank you, Art, for calling, and maybe some of our listeners will come out and tell you that they heard you this morning on Whoop.
And I bet you'll give them a discount if they heard it on Whoop, right?
Absolutely. The kids get a free moonflower.
Oh,
Okay,
like
that's
a
good.
moonflower.
Like moonflowers.
Well, we'll have to bring Avery out there this afternoon then.
Thank you. Thank you, Art. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling.
Plants. All right, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. That's great. Everything.
I didn't know. It
You
was
guys
down there.
get so far ahead of me. I go look at them and think they're pretty, and that's when I plant them. But I've learned not to
Well,
plant
that's where
just
you
yellow,
start.
red, and white, though. See, I'm trying to get some purple into there.
Right.
I love the whites because
Yeah.
they show up so much.
Right.
Yes, we got another caller here. Good morning, you're on Make It Grow.
Hey,
Hey,
question about Rudbeckia.
okay. Go ahead and ask.
We've got curling leaves with white powder stuff on the back side of them.
You've got, sounds like you have powdery mildew, which means that poor circulation of air around them. Maybe it's too crowded or not getting enough sunlight on them. Rudbeckia, most of them, need at least 6 hours plus of sunlight. Does that answer have anything at all?
Yeah, these are actually out in full sun,
Okay.
and the circulation shouldn't really be a problem, so I'm not...
Right.
What can she do? Like
Well,
water?
of course, I'm not big on doing a lot of spraying, but do you know what kind of Rudbeckia it is? Is it Goldstrom, one of the perennial ones, or is it the biennial one, the Gloriosa daisies? Let me ask you, how long has the plant's been there?
This is their second year.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. What about insecticidal soap? I mean,
Horticulture oil
yeah, horticulture.
would be the first choice, something to spray on it for fungus. Underside the leaves, if look and see if there's, it could be even a like whitefly infestation or something like that.
So should she take a leaf to a garden center
Or
a
to
green? Where
I
should
don't
she
know.
take them?
Does the extension agent do that too? Check
It
and
may
take?
take him a while, but he could. We have a new one. We have Patrick Sweet now, and Patrick can help Kim do a lot of this.
Right, or
And-
our garden center. Because it could be in multiple things. My first reaction, though, is when you said white.
Right.
That's
yeah.
so typical of powdery mildew.
Yeah, it's not, it's actually got a little bit of a granular texture to the white that's on the back side of it.
Okay.
Is it messing up the color? Is it changing the color of the leaf?
No, it's just curling them up and making them dry
Well,
out.
that sounds like an insect that's
Uh-huh.
sucking out the juices
Right.
from the leaf.
Yeah, that actually does sound more like what's happening.
So you're going to need something, an insecticide.
Yeah.
Now, my own preference is systemic. That's one that goes, you put it in the roots and it comes up through the roots. That way you get all stages of the insect, because insects go through several eggs and then a larva, worm stage maybe, and then into
And
an
Ruth,
adult.
where would she buy some of that?
Well, Lowe's.
Just any
Walmart.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds.
Ortho Advanced, I'm not trying to push any
Yeah.
particular product, but that's a systemic usually. And check to see, because they have fungicide systemics, they have insecticide systemics. So read the label that you're working, and see if you can figure out which bug you're dealing with.
The Rudbeckia plant is a gold germ.
Okay, that's the perennial black-eyed Susan. Because they bloom late, you could go ahead and cut off a lot of those stems right now to shorten it and get rid of that bug without trying to do a lot of spraying, and then let them come on, and the cycle of that bug may have already been completed. That's the way I feel about Japanese beetles. When they come, I let them have their say, and then they're gone, and then I enjoy my blooms later.
All right. Well, I certainly will try that. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome
you.
for calling.
Thank you.
Good call.
I've got a plant up on there. Tell me what that is.
It's a rhododendron.
Rhododendron.
Okay.
Which one, Ruth?
I don't. It looks like our roseosium.
Uh-huh. This past week we were in Gatlinburg, and the mountain laurel is blooming.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. We really enjoyed and the natives won't start blooming up there until June.
Ladies, you got the phones ringing this morning.
That's
Good morning.
It's
You're on
Ruth.
Make It Grow.
Good morning. I just wanted to call in and say hello to Ruth. She probably doesn't recognize my voice, but I think I was one of her best customers, at least my checking account.
Well, give us a hint.
One thing I learned about gardening flowers is you need an irrigation system, because you start hauling truckload after truckload of flowers from Riceville. You get home and you plant them, and then the 95-degree sun shines in July and August, and you've got to stand out there with a water hose, and mosquitoes bite you. And you start realizing, now if I had a underground drip system installed or some type of irrigation system, this would be a lot more fun. And after about 10 years of mosquito bites, you just decide, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm giving Ruth too much of my money.
She appreciated it.
I still got a
This is Doug Guerin.
that come out.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Very hardy. I
Overalls.
just wanted to say this one species name because I've never said it on the radio. Coreopsis, one of my favorite flowers, and I'm going to hang up, and y'all have a wonderful holiday. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh, thank you.
Happy planting.
Doug, when we told her your name, she said, "Oh yeah, she remembers the checks."
Doug's
Well, when you were talking about developing that new garden out front, that would be wise to think about irrigation, especially in July and August.
And there's some less inexpensive. You can do the little drip things.
Those are ideal. They don't last forever, but
No,
that'd be a good start.
I think that would be a real good start at our house.
Yes,
At some point in time, we get too many separate gardens going, and it's a whole ordeal to
and I
water
think
everything when it's really dry.
Probably what we need to do is dig it all up and start over, because the soil is just so bad right there at our front of our porch, after the concrete's got down in there and everything, because we were done our porch not too long ago. And
Well,
get
that's
this
a
other
what-
calling.
Okay.
Make it grow. Go ahead.
Hey, Ron, Debbie, how you doing?
Hey there,
morning.
Bullet. How are you, sir?
I'm doing
Robert.
pretty good. I just want to ask your guest about pansies. Is it best to plant winter pansies? Do they have summer pansies also?
They stretch and they don't do well here in the South. You need to wait till, I like to say, the 1st of October to plant your pansies.
Okay, the reason I'm going to do this is because I'm going to do it in honor of a veteran. He used to plant pansies up here at the Veteran Cemetery, and I'm going to try to start doing it in honor of him. He passed away on us, and so you say it's best to do it when?
About the 1st of October is when I would start. You want to wait till the heat of the daytime is less and the nights are cool.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
My pool's looking better, sir.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. He takes care of my pool.
Yeah,
for
do
me.
you,
We had an awful time with it.
Is there any kind of fertilizer you put on a pansy or anything? Or
Well,
I
I like to use a slow release when I plant pansies or any annuals, especially the 3 to 6 months. Osmocote's the brand name, but you don't have to use that particular variety. But a slow release, then it just feeds the plants for a long time.
Our pansies at this moment are still quite beautiful. They're kind of stretched out a little bit on their stem. They're in
Leggy.
pots, but they look really pretty right now. But I'm just expecting any day
we
to go
started
home.
them in the pots up by the door. Then they were away from the sun, and they sort of tried to find the sun, and so they leaned this way, and now they're hanging off the porch. So.
I'm bad
really
about
beautiful.
I'm bad about trying to root everything. And Luann came to Master Gardeners, Carrie from Bradley High, and brought us some things. And I didn't get mine planted right away, and they got leggy, the petunias. And so I was planting them, and so I just cut them all off, like she said, and started rooting them. So now I've got, instead of 2 plants, I've got 8 plants. So
Yeah. Now I guess Bradley High School, it's done, isn't it?
I would think, but I don't know. Maybe if someone knows, they could let us know, because
Yeah, the greenhouse is the school.
I would
school
think the
ended Friday, so if there's anything there, they'd probably sell it to you right now. Good morning. You're on Make It Grow.
Hey, Ron.
Hey.
I've got to ask these ladies about good borders like borders around your flower bed.
In the sun or in the shade, Sid? What do you think?
Well, I used to use
But
lobelia because it's the only true blue.
What was it?
True
Lobelia.
blue. They'll know that. They've not. Them ladies already know that. Lobelia is the only true blue flower that they are, and they're a beautiful blue. I think they are annuals.
Sid, is that the plant that you see in the cemeteries? No.
No.
That's good.
It is an annual, yes, and it doesn't like the heat sometimes, so it's hard to get it through the summer.
Yeah. And then what's the white?
Candy Tuft.
Is it? How do you pronounce that? Asylum. What? Asylum, the little white flowering that the favorites love it.
Oh, alyssum.
Alyssum.
You're talking about alyssum. Alyssum is also a great border, but it also struggles sometimes when we get in the heat. A lot of times what I did is give it a shearing and I kept it well watered, and then it bloomed again in the
I've
fall.
used Candy Tuft a little bit.
Well, let me ask you. I'm going to call it this, and you're going to tell me all the proper names. Monkey grass. Tell me what's that?
Liriope.
Liriope.
But Liriope, of course, is wonderful because it's evergreen, but it blooms in August, and you got to be aware that there are two groups of those. There's the spreading kind and the clumping kind. And most people give you the spreading kind. They want to get rid of it, but it doesn't make a good border plant because it wants to run into the garden and everything.
It will be 3 inches and become 12 inches.
Right.
So the clumping stays more and just.
So you need to know what you're buying.
I think we have clumping.
Yeah.
What else, Sid?
I want to ask them one more question.
Go ahead, honey.
These I can't think of the name of them. I used to raise them, and they're white, and they don't make a bloom, but they're white. But they come up. They've got jagged leaves on them, and they're like a. They're almost they almost got a texture like the lamb's ear, or is it lamb's ear or bunny? No, lamb's ear. It's not lamb's ear. What's the name of that spreads so much? Is it lamb's ear?
We're at a loss.
Need a picture here.
Well, some of the scientific names I know, and some of them I don't. But anyway, that's good. I mean, they make a little purple bloom that comes straight up. Anyway, the borders, and I'm sure that these ladies know that the French marigolds,
the short marigolds, yes.
Yeah, are actually insect repellents. They give off an odor that a lot of insects don't like.
I plant them around my tomatoes.
Right.
Is there anything, I'm asking Sid and you ladies, anything to make squirrels go away?
Guns.
That's it, huh? We have cute little squirrels that like to eat all of our vegetables.
I try to stay as organic as I can, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to buy fungicide, and sometimes, like you say, the lime, like if you're planting tomatoes and you want to get your pH, okay, say like my raised bed out here it's 8 by 16. Okay, weedless. Everything in it's sterile. In other words,
you're lucky. Not many of us are that lucky.
Hey, we got another caller coming here, Sid.
Okay.
Thank you,
Buddy.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all.
Before we get running out of time here, I want to say is that this program is sponsored by Whoop Radio and the Bradley County Master Gardeners Organization. If you're interested in becoming a Master Gardener, they have classes once a year. Call the extension agent at 728-7001, and they'll put you on the list. That's on my test. I have to know that number, 728-7001.
Do you get volunteer hours for that? Oh.
We're getting volunteer for this program.
Okay. Well, let's just take just a minute and tell everyone about the Junior Gardeners class that we went to last week.
Yes, Junior Master Gardeners.
It was, we were real impressed.
11 students went through the Junior Master Gardener program, and that's a joint project with the juvenile court systems and Judge Daniel Swalford. And these kids who had got into some kind of minor little problem were sent to this program, and then they went to the Justice Center and they grew flowers and they grew vegetables, and some of them just amazing, the little garden they have up there.
Weren't you impressed with the beds?
Oh, it was.
I was
yes.
impressed with the beds, and I loved the fact that they went out with their little shopping bags and picked their vegetables and took them home the other night.
Yeah, that was good. And, you know, some unbelievable onions up there, and some garlic was huge.
And they also have class time. It's not just garden time.
Yes, I think most of the time it's they do go in and they do the same thing the master gardener does. We study perennials. Ruth come in and taught us perennials, and we have annuals, and we had talked about critters, and we talked about insects last week.
I think they really liked their
they
worm
had worm
project.
night. Yeah.
I think they got.
They all had their own worm project.
But we
going
went
on.
by the other night and watched them graduate, and I was real impressed with them. They were real proud of themselves, and their families were there. Most of them had families there, and they were real proud of them. And
I think one of the fathers really what impressed me was he told the judge, he said, "I'm really impressed is that there's an alternative for my child who got in trouble." Mm-hmm. And you give them something that learned,
constructive,
instead of just saying smacking them and some kind of penalty. Some of them may thought it was a penalty. You have to go to this class. I don't know.
I think in the beginning,
but some of them
they do in the beginning. They, you know, the first class we had, they would sit there and we'd talk to them, and they'd roll their eyes, and they, you know, they wear these cute little shoes. I said, you know, you got to wear real shoes to go play. We have to do that. And, you know, they would just, at first they were just not wanting to do this, but, you know, toward the end, they're just right in, and they get so excited when something, you know, ripens on the vine, and they get to take it home and eat it.
It's a great program, and thanks to Judge Swalford and the Master Gardeners program for sending.
And, you know, if anybody wants to help sponsor, because we are really, really short funded on this.
Yeah, and next
like no funding at all.
Not like, yeah.
Okay, well,
and next
that's
spring, next February, if you have plants that you'd like to donate to the Master Gardener program, please do. A couple tomato plants or just a handful. If you start your own tomato plants and you have 3 or 4 extra ones, call the juvenile system here in
Ricky
Bradley
Talent
County.
will be glad to.
And they'll be glad to do them and grow them in different things. They've tried to grow different things, peanuts and things of that nature also.
We do a refreshment thing for them each week.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it's expensive to feed, you know, 12 or 13 or 14 kids. Because, I mean, these are... Most of them are boys, and you know, you can't take finger sandwiches down there.
I watched them eat ice cream the other night. They're grown boys. Well, Ruth, so thank you so much for coming and being with us today.
Glad to be here.
You guys really got the phones fired up, and
we're just so thankful that Ruth
two quick
gets
questions
to go.
for each one. Your favorite perennial, your favorite native plant. Go ahead.
Well, my favorite perennial. Wow, that's hard to do. I grew like 600 varieties, so I hate to tell you that there isn't really one favorite, but I do enjoy, you know, talking about children and gardening. Seeing something grow, doesn't that give you a sense of peace and satisfaction, even if it's not the plant you thought it was?
Well, I do that with my vegetable garden, which isn't very big, just to see it grow. Just, you know, and it sort of brings me back to thinking about my grandfather who grew gardens, you know, to feed the family type gardens, and just that remembrance of that. I wish I could do 1/3 of what he did, or even 1/10 of that. What's your favorite perennial?
Right now,
I mean, native plant.
Right now, my favorite native plant is my Jack in the Pulpit. I have one that's over 3 foot tall, and I just, you know, I love to. I mean, most people just would look at them and think they're a weed, but I just think they're just really a neat plant.
Well, folks,
this is our last
show of Make It a Grow,
and
maybe sometime in the fall we may bring this back when it gets time to do fall planting or to clean up for the winter and what you do to winterize some of your plants. And
I just want to thank Ruth because she is so good about teaching our Master Gardener classes. I mean, she's been doing this for years, and we're so fortunate to have her in our area.
And just such knowledge, and like I say, she got above my head like about 3 minutes in.
He did come home asking good questions, though.
Yeah.
Good.
See, I'm lucky. I get to hear year after year.
Yeah.
And I went to buy plants, and I said, yellow, red, and white. You know? I was looking for a purple or something in there this year.
He did.
So,
at the garden center.
All right. Well, thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
We'll be back here with you at 10 o'clock for Old Town
The
Cleveland.
Circuit Preacher's Wife, the musical. We're going to be talking about that, and circuit preachers and shape note singing and all that good stuff.
Talk about us old Methodists, right?
That's right.
All right.
See you in a little bit.
All right, bye-bye.
You need money overnight? Check into cash. Your time is tight. .com. Bank account's too low? Check into cash. So where do you go? .com. Do it online in a record time. It's the easy way to get money next day. Do a quick click from home at Check into Cash.